Welcome back, and a special welcome to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Adwell Irion. According to the speakers list, the first person on the list is MP Melissa Gums for the second round, which will be 15 minutes. MP Gums, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to you, my colleagues, to the two ministers gathered before us and their staff. I just have two questions each per minister. So for the Minister of Finance, through you, Mr. Chairman, in the Central Committee meeting regarding this budget amendment, the Minister of Finance mentioned that there will be a surplus of 1 million guilders for 2024, subject to the outcome of the ENYA discussion. So I wanted to know, can the minister provide an update regarding that particular situation? And also, Mr. Chairman, with all the talks surrounding that particular situation, has the government approached the local St. Martin persons mentioned in several legal documents and judgments regarding that case about possibly providing reparation payments for their role in this fiasco? And to the Minister of Justice, what is the, one second, you mentioned earlier in this public meeting, Minister, that 200 LBAs were already drafted. Could you please break down, by any chance, how many per relevant justice entity, so KPSM, immigration, etc.? And just for completeness sake, as the Minister has repeatedly stated, if she could also confirm that the matter of placement, function book finalization, etc., has now occurred for each entity in the justice chain, so from KPSM right on down to customs, immigration, etc. And actually, that's all for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Melissa Gums. The next person is MP Grisha Heiliger Martin. MP Martin, you have the floor.
Good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the Minister of Finance, Minister of Justice, support staff, and my fellow colleagues and those listening and viewing online. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions for the Minister of ECYS regarding the State of Education report. When will the Minister present the State of Education report for the 2022 Parliament as required by law? The Minister signed or authorized the signing of an agreement with other countries in the Kingdom to introduce a Caribbean pre-academic year for St. Martin High School graduates who want to further their studies in the Netherlands. Does this mean that the high school diploma awarded on St. Martin, such as the IB, the CAPE, the CAPE, VWO, and HAVO, have lost their value because they're no longer guaranteed these direct access to tertiary education in the Netherlands? How much funding and expertise and/or resources has the Dutch government made available to facilitate the Caribbean pre-academic year? And does the University of St. Martin offer any NVAO accredited program? Did the University of St. Martin sign any matriculation and articulation agreements with the educational institution in the Netherlands? And according to the Minister press release, the Caribbean pre-academic year is not mandatory. Can the Minister please explain what would prohibit educational institutions in the Netherlands from adding the Caribbean pre-academic year as a prerequisite for admissions? And lastly, can the Minister explain why this agreement should not be seen as discriminatory or voluntarily giving up our rights to equal access to tertiary education in the Netherlands? My next question is for the Minister of TIAT. Regarding the marketplace, can the Minister please provide Parliament with a copy of the commitment letter from the Royal Caribbean Cruise with their amount, the exact amount that they're going to be financing the marketplace for? What is the exact date that the tour went out? When was the tour? What is the exact date that the tour went out? What is the outcome of that? And when was the advice presented to the Council of Advice, and what was the outcome of that advice as well? Obviously, the marketplace has not started, as a Member of Parliament stated in this hall, that it will be starting on December 1st. It has not begun. My question is then, when is the project scheduled to commence? Is it still in 2023 or 2024? And where is it represented in the budget? Regarding the tourist office, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the Minister of TIAT, when was it signed and by which Minister of TIAT in this term was it signed? I have a question regarding the Royal Caribbean Cruise. Please, I'd like to ask you, through you, Mr. Chair, that the Minister can please provide me with the cruise call for the last 2 years and the prospective cruise call for the upcoming season. I'd like to obtain a comparison. Also, is there anything on the list for Disney cruises this season? Any cruise calls for the Disney cruise this season, and how many times a week, and if it's weekly, I would like to know if it's on the schedule for this season. With regards to the water park, I'd like to ask a few questions as well there, Mr. Chairman, through you. What are the details of this new facility? Will it include a hotel? Who's funding it? Is it the government? Is it a harbor? Is it a third party? Is it a collaboration? And if it's the third party, who's the third party, Mr. Chairman? Is the agreement already in place? And if that is the case, I'd like to see the agreement as well. I would like to know which Minister of TIAT started with this initiative and why. Then I have, of course, more questions about the taxis and bus licenses. Coincidentally, yesterday, Mr. Chairman, at exactly 12:16 p.m., the Minister of TIAT posted on the government page a public announcement stating that there's a cap. All of a sudden, there's a cap. I would like the Minister of TIAT to explain me the cap. Have he now surpassed the cap of 550? Because he said that that's the maximum if it can go. So what exactly does he mean by the cap? I want him to explain this notification where it says that based on the publication of September 29, 2023, 28, 2023, in which we set caps for the public transportation, bus, taxi, TG, place. I'd like some explanation of what he means by this announcement. I want a breakdown. Then I have only one question for the Minister of Justice. Obviously, the payment, of course, will only go out once the LBA is received. My question is, of course, I'm free from objections, but my question is, what is the percentage of the total amount of LBAs that's going to be paid out? And I know the minister also, through you, Mr. Chairman, broke down a trajectory of what is that she would have to, once it's signed, it'll go by the minister, but I want a timeline. I want a breakdown of approximate time. How long would it take? So once this is passed, everything goes to the governor to sign. He has to ratify the approved budget, and then all the other documents have to go by the governor to sign. Then the LBAs will take how long? And then once the LBAs are signed by the Minister of Justice, which she clearly stated that she's going to make sure that it's done expeditiously. Once that's done expeditiously, when, and then it goes to the Minister of Finance, maybe the Minister of Finance could respond to my question, when would these payments go? And if they are going to get paid out, what is the percentage that this government plans to pay from the LBAs? What the exact percentage of the overall payment that's going to be put out after this? What percentage of that will be paid out? I have my last questions now for the minister. Before I continue, how long do I have, Miss? Because I'm kind of rushing here. Okay, I have 9 minutes. I have my last questions for the Minister of VSA. The Otley Opportunity Scholarship, OOS, for local workforce development at NEPA, supported by major investments. Who are these major investments, Mr. Chairman? Sorry? Investors, sorry. Who are these major investors, Mr. Chair, and what ties do they have with government? What's the scope of the service, the SOS agreement? What exactly does that entail? And what criteria of the scope are they in line with in order for them to be investing in this scholarship? Can any investor join in once they pass meet the criterias? What is the amount associated with the fund? And how many prospective students can receive a scholarship on a yearly basis based on the allotted funds? And how long is this agreement in place? The minister also mentioned many times that he was able to create 1,000 opportunity for work on cruise ships. And just recently, the minister also had his job fair. For the record, once more, I would like to have the Minister of VSI indicate how many locals received a job with the 1,000 job opportunities on the cruise ship. How many was registered and received a job? And what was the outcome of the recent job fairs? How many people received jobs at that recent job fair? How many was in attendance, and how many signed and received a job at that recent job fair? And then I have a final question for the Minister of VSA. Just an update on the BIG law. What's the status there? Is it in its final stages? Has it already been implemented? If it's not in its final stages, what's the holdup? And when can it be finalized? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heiliger Martin. The next person is MP Christopher Emmanuel, who is not there. The next MP is MP George Pantherplit. MP George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My colleagues in Parliament, our Hifir, Honorable Minister of Justice and Minister of Finance, support staff, persons who are viewing and listening, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, again, I want to use this opportunity to thank the ministers and the cabinet for the effort that have been made in order to ensure that the proper amendments to this budget was made. I'm looking forward to approving such today. Mr. Chairman, before I get into a few remarks, not necessarily questions, I want to dispel a rumor that is ongoing. I think they try one, and you know they try one myself, but not that serious. It is being said that I am not contesting the elections of 2024, interestingly. So I want to let the public know that indeed I am contesting the 2024 elections on January 11th upcoming. Just want to make that clear, because if the photos are out there, I don't have many, but at least you can go down the line and see that I'm number 13, I'm right there. So just to dispel that rumor. Mr. Chairman, the issue of the amendments to the budget. This morning on my way to Parliament, I listened to a radio interview. And a sideline politician, Mr. Chairman, was saying that when I mentioned the issue of the CFT interfering in the manner in how the budget is being prepared, that sideline politician said that what I said was ludicrous. But Mr. Chairman, we know that down through the years, Mr. Chairman, I've called the budget on numerous occasions the CFT budget, because it cannot go through as it is when we present it until they approve it. So I've always called it a CFT budget. So I want to say to the sideline politician, Mr. Chairman, that he should definitely pay attention and engage his brain before he opens his mouth, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the matter of the taxi licenses and bus licenses, I believe I said it before, maybe not publicly. As a member of the Island Council, I had requested information, not that detailed, with regards to how many bus licenses and taxi licenses and so on. And Mr. Chairman, I can tell you to date I didn't get the answers, and that was Island Council days, now we are Parliament. So I believe the minister was very forthcoming in presenting that kind of information, but again, he reserved the right not to have names called and so on the floor of this Parliament, because again, for me, that's invading one's privacy, and it can cause serious problems, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the issue of the payment for the police officers and all those who are affected, I will repeat again, it was a tedious, very tedious exercise. And it did not come to this floor easily, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, we all are aware of this. And this is why I'm saying, let us don't play politics with a matter as serious as this is. I think what we should be doing, Mr. Chairman, is applying pressure as it relates to the nice apologies that have been made by the King and the former Prime Minister Mark Rutte, and see exactly if they're going to be forthcoming in canceling the debt. So we can use the funds that's being paid to them in order to invest in St. Martin. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are told that you cannot invest in operational cost expenses, only in infrastructure and so on. But I beg to differ. Because I believe that if you invest in police officers and custom officers and on civil servants, that's also a worthwhile investment, Mr. Chairman, because then they'll perform much better, they'll get a better training and so on, and then we'll benefit from that also. I call that also a positive investment. So I beg to differ about infrastructure alone. I believe investing in your people, in your staff, in your civil servants is also a worthwhile investment. So, Chairman, on a little side note, I think I brought this up more than once. How do we, what is in place to ensure there has to be some kind of stability at the gas stations, Mr. Chairman? Because I normally buy gas, I pay guinness, because when it comes to dollars, you lose. I decided to try it out. I think it was, today is what, Wednesday? Monday. I decided to ask for $40 gasoline. And you know what? I got in the tank 70 gallons. 70 gallons. So what is it? Is it 175? Is it 177? Is it 178? Is it 179? Is it 180? What is it? Because 175 is what I heard they're charging, Mr. Chairman. So how is it regulated? Are they able to do whatever they want, charge whatever they want, or is there a regulation in place that says this is the amount for everyone, every gas station, Mr. Chairman? So I would let that situation to be looked into. Mr. Chairman, the sideline politician also mentioned that GB is not, we should not mention GB when it comes to the budget. Mr. Chairman, GB is part of the budget when it comes to the concession fees. And while on this, Mr. Chairman, I am happy to hear that finally that government is deciding to establish a dividend policy where we can collect monies from these government-owned companies. And yes, it is understood that it depends on their financial situation, because if they make it a loss, Mr. Chairman, they can't pay dividends. But concession fees don't change. That is established. So, Mr. Chairman, the only suggestion I would have regards the issue of GEBE, because, again, you know, all of us get complaints, electricity and water. And I was in discussion with a senior, and they had a problem because why? They have been paying, I think it was in this particular instance, it was their water bill. They have been paying $55, $60 for their water bill. All at once, it is $400 and $500. They came and they checked, and there is no leakage. But these persons use their system, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, in this instance, I believe what GB should do, look at their history and apply it according to their history. If you can't find a leakage, then something wrong with your meter, not the person. So I think that is something you should look after, instead of having them come back and forth and telling you do not know. No, that is wrong. Look at their history, and based on their history, that's what they pay. Because when they had a hack, Mr. Chairman, what I did, I paid what I'm accustomed to pay every month, more or less. And when the time came, and I didn't get the bill up to now, I get how much I have to pay, but no bill. But I continue to pay because it remains within the range of what I normally pay. So that I can live with. But you cannot come and tell me, Mr. Chairman, that all at once my bill is from $200 to $600, $800, and then I have to pay. No, Mr. Chairman. I think those kind of bills, GB should absorb that loss. There's none to dispute, to discuss. That should be absorbed by GB. Also, Mr. Chairman, which was interesting, and that's why a caller called in yesterday, I think the day before, and when they said what they said, I smiled, because I went to pay. I normally pay my bill, Mr. Chairman, physically. I don't go online, because when you go online, you can't meet people. When I go to TLM and GB and those places, I meet persons I haven't seen for quite a long time. So that's why I keep doing that, to see the people, Mr. Chairman, because based on social media, you can sit in your home all day and talk to people on WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram, whatever, and then you don't see them physically. Mr. Chairman, this U.S. citizen said that he spent 6 months on St. Martin and 6 months abroad. Mr. Chairman, I was shocked to hear that he was not disconnected by GB. He owed GB 2,000 from 2021. He didn't pay, neither 2022. I'm talking about November 2023. And he was not disconnected by GB. Then I met another individual, Mr. Chairman, who deposited $1,000 on his arrears to GB. And he had a balance of 1,000. And he showed me. I said, but how come you owe all of that? He said, well, I didn't pay them the whole of last year, and they didn't disconnect me, so I'm paying them now. That's not stories, Mr. Chairman. That's what I know because I have spoken to these individuals. So we have to look at the middle. Look at the middle, because GB used her reserves in order to maintain persons who are not paying. So I'm not going to pick politics and say, yes, you know, but GB should do this, GB should do that. No, Mr. Chairman. I am being honest and fair with both parties. Because it can be solved reasonably, but as I said before, if somebody has a history of paying a particular amount, then it should not be that all at once it becomes ridiculous and GB tell him you have to pay it. No, Mr. Chairman. You have to absorb that loss and let them pay what they're accustomed to pay, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I believe it is important that we understand our responsibilities as members of Parliament. You know, the people voted for us as members of Parliament to represent them, and what we do should always based on what in their best interest. And this is why when I stand on the floor of Parliament, I don't come with stories or innuendos, Mr. Chairman, but I come with facts that I believe I can defend if the questions are asked of me to defend them. And I believe that is being responsible when it comes to the people's business. So, Mr. Chairman, I will leave it here for now. Again, I want to thank the ministers for their work and their staff that they have done. And I do hope that we can come to an agreement in order to allow the process to continue. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I got to come back to the safety again. No matter what they might say, Mr. Chairman, about we sign the law, Mr. Chairman, honestly, we say consensus. I want anyone in here to show me where in the Kingdom Charter it mentions consensus kingdom law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP George Pantoflet. The next person I have is MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. MP Sarah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good afternoon. A good afternoon to you, a good afternoon to my colleagues, a good afternoon to the ministers and their support staff. Good afternoon to all tuned in to the continuation of this meeting on the amended budget 2023. Mr. Chairman, in my previous questions, I had asked if the contract, the rental contract for the new tourist office can be shared with Parliament, and the answer given was, yes, it can. And my question is, well then, please do so. It was, okay, I see it was. So ministers, that I'm understanding it was shared, so we have that. Mr. Chairman, I continue with a question for the Minister of Justice. And in the minister's presentation, the minister gave a sheet on which included the matter of the dark hour payments, and that this will be adjusted retroactively. I believe retroactively to July 2020 or something of that sort. And I would like to know whether that retroactive adjustment is part of the overall payout of justice workers, or is it going to be separate, that this adjustment will be made and paid out considering that it is retroactive to 2020? Can the Minister of Justice provide an update on the insurance for justice workers? I continue on a topic for the Ministry of TIAT, and my colleague MP MP Grisha Heiliger referred to it, and I want to ask the minister, and the Minister of Finance the last time around had indicated that the advice for the bid for the marketplace was in circulation and thus could not be shared yet because it was in circulation to be approved. Since that is some time ago, I ask if now that information can be shared. Coming back to the Ministry of Justice, Mr. Chairman, on the sheet presented by the Minister of Justice regarding overtime, it read that, and I paraphrase, the overtime will, which it is, will remain. And that is the 150% on one hand and the 200% on the other hand. But then there's another line that states that the new overtime regulation for the police will go into effect at some future date. And I would like to know what exactly is that proposal for overtime? What exactly does that entail? So, Mr. Chairman, those were my notes from the presentation that was made. And I reiterate my question regarding the Phillipsburg Marketplace. Can it now be revealed who got the bid? And again, my colleague has asked some information regarding the TOR, the terms of reference, et cetera, that led to the bid. I too would like to know the agreement with the Royal Caribbean Group for the marketplace, and the answers provided by the government were that it includes a pledge by Royal Caribbean Cruise, and I would like to know that agreement. Can that be shared? One. Secondly, can the minister, via the Ministry of TIAT, provide Parliament with the most recent cruise numbers in terms of ships, in terms of revenue, most recent cruise numbers. Again, my colleague also asked regarding this latest notice by the government regarding a cap. Suddenly now, yesterday, it appeared a notice by the Ministry of TIAT that no more requests for bus and taxi licenses will be considered, and because they have reached the cap. And what cap was that? One can recall that the minister, based on a question I posed earlier regarding the cap and the lifting of the moratorium on taxis and buses, indicated that in the past, some minister of TIAT had ordered 550 sets of taxi license plates. And in the view of the minister at the time, that means that that is what the ministry should go up to. So granting taxi licenses in the view of the ministry is based on the amount of plates that somebody in their wisdom some time ago ordered. So now that this notice came out yesterday, have we reached that cap, is my question. This is not to, yes, it is to the government, because I assume, Mr. Chairman, that the reason why the GB public meeting cannot continue or did not continue has to do with the government not being ready for it to continue. I'm just assuming that. If not, if it's in the lap of Parliament, I would like to hear that. So my question is, when will the meeting on GEBE continue? That's my question. And what is the delay? Why can't the meeting take place? Why can't answers be given based on questions posed by members of Parliament? Mr. Chairman, again, and imagine we didn't compare notes, but the issue of the article that appeared on this scholarship, OOS, SOS, and then the government has a heart to put an article under the caption of that the government reached an agreement with major investors. Mr. Chairman, I think that something like a public-private partnership should be encouraged. But the government is going to put everything under the number of major investors. Who are they? Who are considered major investors? Can other not so major investors participate in this endeavor, in this initiative? How can the government present to the people an agreement made, and we ain't gonna say who it is, we're gonna say it's with major investors? Who are considered in that category? What about others? Can others participate? What kind of a public-private partnership is this if we don't know who the private partner is in the public-private partnership? Mr. Chairman, so if I could get some information, illustration on that as well. Mr. Chairman, I asked a question, and I'm going to go through it quickly, regarding GEBE, and that the government in 2017 entered into an agreement with the BTP as far as our utility company is concerned. That was my question, that was my statement. And the government answered as follows. In 2017, BTP was indeed commissioned by the then sitting ministers of Romy and Tiat to do a market research and update on the energy policy in order to make suggestions as to how best assign the regulatory tasks to BTP for the utility sector. And then they continued, the minister continued, a findings report was submitted to the minister of Tiat along with an advice as to how we saw this most feasible in our market. And the report was recently resent to the cabinet of Tiat and is being reviewed to provide BTP with a formal response on how to move forward. What were the findings of the minister? So because I brought it up, is then that the minister decided to ask where is this report and now is going to process a report based on an MOU signed in 2017? Regarding the regulatory task of BTP for the utility company. So what is the position of the minister on the matter of having some kind of regulatory agency for our utility company? That's my question. Mr. Chairman, I see on the answers given to members of parliament, based on my question, regarding the roads and the plans for the roads. So we received the lineup, all the roads, the side roads are mentioned. I want to know, is there a schedule for the repairs to these roads? All of them that are, is there a schedule? Or is it, okay, this road today, that road tomorrow, a little dig up in Orange Grove Road, don't fill it up good, water still running. Is there a schedule for these roads to be fixed? Mr. Chairman, I asked about the RESM bid, and that is too, and then the government answered me and said that it has to do with the plastic bag ban because we got to make sure that is in order, and we can't do anything about it until we have all the regulatory framework and the like, and the like, and the like. Mr. Chairman, this government is famous for commissioning and having reports and doing nothing with them. And then to come to another report. And then by the time a year passes, then it's let's review and let's redo. And I'm going to mention some. The Gaming Control Board report, the Crime Fund report, the Poverty Alleviation, the MAF report, with specific actions to be undertaken in the context of poverty alleviation and the environment. The energy policy, now we got to update it. The road policy, oh yeah, we have a road network policy, now we got to update it. A report spurring economic activity, but we say nothing about it. We do all kinds of things, but we don't use the report that we commissioned and paid so much money for to do. Mr. Chairman, we talk about the issue of RESM bid. And one of the parts of that is the early warning system. Mr. Chairman, while we're talking about this, for example, if you go on the French side, you would see one. There are boards telling you where a gathering is to take place if there is a tsunami warning out. Two, buildings that get permit have their permit listed outside that people passing and say, oh yeah, this house, this business, they have a permit to do what they're doing. Let's see what the permit is all about. So all of these reports that we are working on, but these kind of practical things, you don't get them, you don't see them. Mr. Chairman, under the Ministry of Finance, I asked a question about the 1.6 for the SBIR, and the minister indicated what that is for. It has to do with a mutual arrangement on the cooperation regulation ICT law enforcement chain between the kingdom partners, was entered into by the then Minister of Justice, Perry Halings. I see the Minister of Justice, Perry Halings' name coming back very often in the report, and I think we should mention all the ministers. So when we say this was done by this one, mention the minister name. This done, you know, so since we mentioned in Perry Halings, mention all of them. But then what I want to get to on this particular item is that can we be provided with all of the agreements based on mutual agreements that require a payment from St. Martin? Because I think sometimes we sell ourselves short where this matter is concerned. We contribute to many of the services in the context of the Justice Ministry. St. Martin pays a part. The taxpayer on St. Martin pays a part. And I would like the listing of those type of agreements in which we participate and pay a part. Because this thing was financed previously by the Netherlands, and now we got to do it ourselves. I asked about the subsidy for the St. Martin Housing Foundation. They told me what it's about, but I want to know what is the situation right now. That's like a minute? Okay. Let me see what we do then in a case like that. Mr. Chairman, okay, let me see. 1 minute to go. Okay. Okay, let me use my 1 minute to make this point. GEBE, concession. The minister indicated in response to my question, nobody else's question, my question, that a matter of the concession of GEBE is equal to the amount owed by government for electricity and water bills. So there is no net difference there. The minister indicated that the amount of the concession of GEBE amounts to the amount that government has to pay GB for water and electricity once the fuel clause is included. There is no money in between that. So that's what it is. So I want the minister to confirm that I was reading correctly. And for the half minute left that I still have, so we have GB, and then quickly to the Minister of Justice. Minister of Justice, you have indicated the LBs have to come before the people can be paid out, and it has to be irrevocable. And so and if the possibility exists for some LBs to be finalized in December, how would that be paid out? Is there a way that this can be paid out outside of the payroll? Or once the payroll is closed, then that cannot happen and it happens in 2024? And quickly, is there only one LB per person that includes phase 1, 2023, and the other? Or are there 2 LBs per person, one for 2023, the whole year, and the other one for 2024? And beyond. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you. I didn't get all my questions in, but I will somehow deal with those. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Westcott-Williams. At this moment, I will take a 10 minutes adjournment. Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes.
And welcome back. After that 10 minutes break, we will immediately continue with the next speaker, and the next speaker is none other than MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson, you have the floor. Until 3:28. Still 3:28.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, Secretary General, my colleague members of Parliament, the honorable ministers here today, and those also following and contributing to the answering of the questions, the staff, those in the Tribune, and those following this meeting. Mr. Chairman, before I go into just a couple points that I had, and actually have two motions that I would like to present, there is just something that I would like to bring to the context of what I hear a lot during this meeting, also in previous meetings of Parliament and many years in Parliament, is that we often, rightfully so, demand and expect an attention to locals, or even more specifically, St. Martiners. But this indeed, when you look at it from a policy perspective, can create some ambiguity to the point where, unless we are at the point where we have successfully, as a community, as a country, defined the St. Martiner. Oftentimes we use this and we say, you know, St. Martiners need to have opportunities, St. Martiners need to have work. But I heard a question earlier that prompted that when we say that, let's say, a policy is going to be suggested or resolved within the government-owned companies to hire St. Martiners or locals, what exactly are we talking about? And when are we going to come to the point where we actually decide, especially as a parliament, that it is important to identify the status of the St. Martiner, possibly introduce the status of a belonger, and have a community that is inclusive, where we can understand that the people of St. Martin have that identity very clearly. Those that are born to be here and want to be here also have that status, and that immigrants who follow the rules and who want to be a part of this society and pay their fair portion to the community and to the government, also all of us have an opportunity to be a part of St. Martin. So I just wanted to make that statement as something that I think hopefully in future parliaments we will be able to address very carefully. Mr. Chairman, I just had really two motions that I wanted to use the second round to present. Mr. Chairman, the first one, and I just want to say very frankly, I think I'm a very frank person when it comes to, regardless of the government that I support and ministers, I try to handle things very diplomatically as possible. But the fact is, I am not going to pretend that I do too want to ensure that any concerns regarding what we have done in terms of the cleanup of the taxi system and all of this, that these questions are sufficiently answered in a manner that doesn't trample on the privacy or information of citizens, but that details should emerge to put to rest once and for all that there was any unfairness or anything going on that is not in the principles of good governance. Mr. Chairman, the goal set out to be able to clean up the taxi and bus registry, to be able to ensure that we stay below the cap, and of course, transition some people that have been renting Hulk chauffeur licenses, albeit illegally, and allow them the opportunity to now have it directly. If this has been done without sufficient clarity to the public, to the taxi drivers and the buses, then I hope that the minister will be able to continue to provide this here today and to the public. But Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things that I've always wondered about our local taxi industry is that I believe that, unlike many countries, I would say maybe most countries, the taxi industry primarily, or for a very significant portion, relies on domestic travel, so people from within the city or from within the country itself to make use of their services. Mr. Chairman, I don't know for the rest of my colleagues here or others how often it has been that we ourselves have ever taken a taxi or have been using the service other than maybe when we come from the airport or are going to the airport in some cases. Mr. Chairman, I think we have an opportunity in St. Martin to expand the amount of income that our taxi drivers can make by stimulating the local market more. When we look at St. Martin having 60,000 residents, and even now you add more, the French side, if just 10% of those people were to spend just $300 a month on taxis, we're talking $1.8 million a month going into the taxi industry. That's just 10% of the population. But I believe it's incumbent on the Ministry of TIAT and the Minister of TIAT to be able to come up with the feasibility of something like this, to deal with the practicalities of this is something that is probably very, culturally and as a custom for us, that is not something very common for locals to make use of taxis. But I believe if we can make an effort as a government, as a Ministry of TIAT, to really actually start to stimulate by means of policy, by means of improved local dispatching, so there's a very reliable manner in which someone can call and get a taxi, special rates for locals, etc. I think we can do something to stimulate more income for this industry as a whole. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I have a motion that I would like to present, and this is the draft motion of Parliament, the Parliament of St. Martin, in its meeting of December 13, 2023, considering that the market for taxis in St. Martin is currently heavily reliant on tourism, that St. Martin has a resident population exceeding 60,000, including a significant number on the French side, representing a substantial local potential user base for taxi services, that if 10% of the population were to utilize taxis at a rate of just $300 per month, this would, at a total of $300 per month, this would generate over $1.8 million monthly for taxi drivers and thousands of dollars a month for the individual operators. That increased use of taxis by locals has the potential to also alleviate traffic congestion. Resolves, for the Ministry of TIAT to formulate and present a comprehensive plan, including draft budgets and policy proposals aimed at encouraging the use of taxis by local residents. This plan should encompass, 1, a feasibility study. Sorry. I did one little edit here, so I need to read from. And if the members of Parliament who have been reviewing the original copy, if they can pass it to me, please. Thank you very much. Yes. This study should explore, first, a feasibility study, conduct a thorough feasibility study with the objective of achieving a target of up to 10% of the population using taxis regularly. The study should explore factors influencing local taxi usage and propose strategies to achieve the desired increase. This should be completed by March 2024. Based on the positive result of the feasibility study, the next step should include a marketing program, develop a marketing program for taxi operators to incentivize local usage at a special rate. This program should aim to make taxi services more available and affordable for residents, thereby promoting regular use. An improved taxi dispatching system, establish a policy for an enhanced local dispatching system that streamlines taxi services, making them more efficient and responsive to local needs. The system should prioritize user-friendly technology to facilitate easy access to taxi services. And an inclusive approach. Implement an inclusive approach that does not discriminate between associated and non-associated taxi members. All qualified taxi license holders should have equal opportunities to participate in and benefit from all of the initiatives proposed in this plan. And goes over to the order of the day. This motion is supported by the members Marlin, myself, and Gums. Thank you for your support, MPs. The next motion I would like to table, Mr. Chairman, is on a question that I had posed since in the Central Committee meeting, and I would like to thank the Minister of Finance for his effort in trying to get the information as to what the status is and what the rights and responsibilities are when it comes to locals making use of e-commerce and online banking websites such as Venmo, Cash App, and in particular, because this became a more recent issue, Revolut. As some people may know, Revolut is an online service that many locals have been using to be able to trade online, to be able to receive payments for services such as music, arts, for goods that they produce locally, for even some local accountants make use of Revolut in order to give their accounting services internationally. I believe this has potential to bring in additional new income into the country that would otherwise not be coming in, and it is something that is completely, this e-commerce sector is completely non-reliant really on tourism. So I believe it's important for us to try to stimulate wherever possible, e-commerce, and the key part of that is the transaction. Because if our people can't be paid for the services that they do in an easy manner, no one is going to go through the trouble of going to a bank, sending a wire transfer, paying the extra fees and so on to be able to pay for a service of a local. And I believe Revolut and these other services have played an important part in that. In order to create clarity for both citizens, the parliament, the government, as well as these international services, I want to present a motion to ask the central bank to come up with clear guidelines to promote in accordance with what the law does and does not allow, and which should hopefully allow platforms like Revolut to be able to continue their service in St. Martin. The motion reads, draft motion of Parliament. The Parliament of St. Martin, in its meeting of December 13, 2023, considering Article 2 of the National Ordinance on the Supervision of Banking, which states, it is prohibited for anyone to conduct the business of a credit institution in St. Martin without prior authorization of the bank. However, online banking services such as Revolut are not currently established in St. Martin within the context of the aforementioned ordinance. Residents of St. Martin utilize online banking services like Revolut for engaging in e-commerce activities. Resolves, for the Minister of Finance to request for the central bank to publish clarification and or guidelines on the rights and the responsibilities of residents of St. Martin utilizing e-commerce services, particularly focusing on platforms like Revolut, and goes over to the order of the day. A copy of this motion will be sent to the government of St. Martin and His Excellency the Governor, and it is supported by the MPs Bryson, Marlin, and Pantaflet. Thank you for the support. Mr. Chairman, I would just like to close by Mr. Chairman, I would like to close by thanking, we've had various ministers here, but in particular the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Justice, who have had to give extensive explanations as to this budgetary process. The way it is, I would summarize it, is that it's been a long road to get to this point. We have had many, since 2010, many efforts to be able to try to, let's say, resolve the function book issue, to ensure that we have proper budgeting and so on. I think we have done quite a good job in being able, as Parliament, to pose the necessary questions that hopefully give clarity to our justice workers, but also to the ministers who have provided the information. I think some of the questions that have just been posed in the second round are, however, very salient. And it really comes down to a clear understanding of what expectations are. I know I've repeated that multiple times, and I hope that with the information that is provided, that this is not just provided to the Parliament of St. Martin, but that the Ministry of Justice is also in constant communication with the justice officers who may not be able to follow this meeting, but maybe be able to get a summary of what was discussed in Parliament and what the implications of this budget are. I think it's also interesting to note the multi-year approach of this budget, and I don't think enough has been said about that aspect. I believe that initially you would hear a lot of the attention being placed on the figure retroactive payment, but I think what actually makes it possible to be able to justify doing these function books and being able to put people within their correct functions is the fact that we also are looking at this from a multi-year perspective in the context of this national ordinance and the budget. A lot of that is explained within the elucidation. My only caution and what I will look forward to in future budget debates, if the people of St. Martin welcome me back to the Parliament again, the fact that in every budget we will have to remember this moment, that we have taken the decision to finally pay the justice workers what they deserve. And in every future budget, no matter the challenges that we have, no matter the hurricane or pandemics or so on, we are committed to be able to pay this, which means we have to continue to go on the track that we have been going in improving our economy, improving our tax receipts, and importantly, like I mentioned in the earlier round, that we actually start to have other entities, in particular the airport and the harbor, need to start paying into for their services that they receive from customs and the airport in order to secure future funds for years to come for all of our justice workers. But I believe that is something that we would have to handle within the 2024 budget. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, and I thank the honorable ministers once again.
Thank you, MP Bryson. You have 12 seconds left. The next speaker, MP Rayan Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the honorable ministers in the House with their respective staffs, to my honorable colleagues, to the Secretariat, to everybody else tuned in. Mr. Chairman, in round one, I believe that my answers pertaining to the Minister of Roaming were not answered, so I would like to reiterate them. And since I got a vague answer, I would like to word it more precisely to you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any plans from the Minister of Roaming to issue any parcel of land, in particular in the over the bank area? And has there any indication been made to applicants that they should either pay for a made brief, or has any instruction been given to Cadastre to draw up any made brieven within the last 2 months and moving forward regarding the same area? I'm asking this, Mr. Chairman, because I heard the Minister of Finance through you yesterday say that they were not aware of the DDAM arrest. So if the Council of Ministers is unaware of the DDAM arrest, that the notaries have actually given notice that they are not signing any deeds pertaining to domain public land, then until the DDAM arrest has been adhered to by the Minister of Roaming, I think that this should be looked into. And this DDAM arrest also mentions that without a clear policy that guarantees a fair and transparent process, that every issuance of new long lease parcels by the Ministry of Roaming can be deemed against the principles of good governance and the principle of equality. The Minister of Roaming can, and to my opinion, should be held responsible for this, as per the verdict. When it comes to over the bank, Mr. Chairman, the judge was clear that the minister was also wrong in his way of handling the case and that he had to fix the situation before proceeding with anything. But at the moment, it seems like the opposite is going on. And then also to you, Mr. Chairman, for the same Minister of Roaming, it seems like the last time this question also got lost in translation, so I'm going to rephrase it. Are there any plans from the Ministry of Roaming to issue a parcel of water, specifically made brief 523 of the year 2007, or the surrounding area in question in long lease to anybody? If so, to who? And what are the parameters of said long lease? And a very specific question, does this water parcel fall within the channel that is meant to let boats flow through the lagoon? To you, Mr. Chairman. Then, Mr. Chairman, I would like to also direct some questions to the Minister of VSA. These questions are basically the same questions that I have asked through the regular channels of Parliament, but haven't received an answer yet. And it's regarding the cannabis legislation. I took note on the press release on the 6th of October 2023 in the Daily Herald, where the ministry stated that the RFP package for cannabis legislation has been sent to the COM for review. The article also mentions a committee within the ministry that handled the selection process for the private companies who will, and according to the article, assist each relevant ministry with the legislative changes needed to make the legislation a reality. Additionally, the article also states that the Department of Legal Affairs, after approval by the Council of Ministers, would have to draft an agreement with the true private companies that won the selection process. And they would then allegedly pay for stakeholder studies, social interviews, etc. On October 11, I asked questions concerning this RFP, but since then, certain applicants have come to me because they started to receive letters of denial with absolutely no details as to why they have not been selected. Actually, one of those denial letters mentions that we would like to express our gratitude for the considerable time and effort you invested in crafting your proposal. However, after extensive deliberation and meticulous consideration, another organization's proposal has been selected as a preferred choice. This with no type of substantiation as to why or what the criteria were or which companies were selected. So my questions pertain to this whole process to you, Mr. Chairman. What extensive deliberation was done in the preparation of this denial? By who was this deliberation done? Who were the members of the group or committee that did these deliberations? And what criteria were used to select these two companies from the total of companies that sent in a request? So in short, Mr. Chairman, through you, what meticulous consideration has taken place? And can you elaborate extensively on how this process went? Through you, Mr. Chairman, also, how were the two companies selected? Based on what specific criteria and based on which comparison was done with the other applicants that made these two supposed companies be the winners? And also, since we're talking about establishing legislation, what expertise do these two chosen companies have concerning Dutch legislation, and what is their track record in actually legislation when it comes to St. Martin law? And then, Mr. Chairman, through you, why was this process not a transparent process for the public to see and be part of? And why were the criteria for the selection procedure not made public to begin with? And considering that an appeal procedure concerning any government decision, actually part of the law, is there an appeal procedure for the applicants who requested to be part of the RFP but were subsequently denied? And if so, where can they go with their appeal and concerns? Aside from these answers, I would also like the answers to the questions that were sent through the regular channels to also be answered through the regular channels to you, Mr. Chairman. And I believe that'll be it for me for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Rayon Peterson. And we continue. We have the following speaker, MP Hyacinth Richardson, but he just left on an emergency. And the next speaker is MP Ludmila De Weaver. MP, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My neighbor gets upset when I say Mr. Chair, but as long as you don't get offended by it, I will continue to call you Mr. Chair, because no one has ever objected to it. Instead of Mr. Chairman, that is the point. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity again. I've been very simple since last week and this week. I almost sound like a broken record when I say that all I wanted to hear from since we started Central Committee to now being in this public meeting is something realistic that people could actually depend on and hold everyone accountable to. I wanted to know the reality of justice workers getting paid out, the reality of civil servants that have approached me getting paid out, what they are expecting, which is COLA adjustments. You're expecting justice workers since 2019 to get some sort of response to what has been overdue for a long time. In my discussion with some of the police officers, some of the justice workers in general, my sentiment back to them was, wow, we're really lucky if for over 10 years some of you have been employed and you are still there doing your job every day and you are still getting paid the same thing that you were getting paid 10 years ago. And I want to point out something about this Minister of Justice, who I do feel has been actively working on it and trying to come up with a solution. But if I look over the conversation and the discussions that has happened over the Budget 2023 debate, one of the things that stick with me as well that came from the Minister of Justice is that what was done in 2019 was incorrect, the way it was done. And the concern that you have from people, even in my review and discussion now, is there's some of us who have to pay back people. So how are we gonna do that? When are we gonna pay them back for the amounts that were paid out? There were things that were done willy-nilly, and that's why I point to this Minister of Justice, that when discussing the justice workers' payments, that it was done in a structured manner. And again, I'm gonna keep it simple. I just want to know when this is gonna happen, COLA workers across all ministries, the reality of the justice workers getting anything, because even when I listen to other MPs talk today, what I hear is a lot of things that we also said we were gonna collect in the budget, like the Airbnb tax, like the tourist tax of people coming in. But it's not really realistic. And we're at the end of 2023, so the likelihood of us getting that money is a little bit almost impossible when we have less than half a month left in the year. So I just want reality. I just want something trustworthy. That's really all I've been asking simply. Because when you promise people something, and then you come here and you change your answers 3 times to me, it makes me wonder whether you're a good storyteller or just a liar. I just want the truth and what people can expect. And when you have a timeline of a plan for payout, take into consideration in your payout plan, take into consideration what happens in the event of another Hurricane Irma. Are you gonna start reserving things on the side so that we won't have to string along justice workers and maybe civil servants for another 10 years? Take it into consideration. That's all I ask, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
What's the difference between chair and chairman? Okay, because you insisted on one and then you ended on the other. Thank you, MP Ludmila De Weaver. We have come to the end of questions in this round, the second round, that is, and we will take a short break to have a discussion with ministers. I see ministers are present. Probably some of them are ready to answer or would be ready to answer within a few minutes, but we will take a few minutes to caucus with them so we can establish the way forward. I see there is no need for a break, as indicated by a minister of, our Minister of Finance, who is ready to provide answers from his end. The Minister of VSR is also present and has indicated he too is prepared to answer as soon as the opportunity presents itself. And we have the Minister of Justice in the House as well. So we will kick off immediately with the Minister of Finance. Welcome, Minister, and you have the floor.
Right. I'm good, right?
You have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Khafir, members of Parliament, my colleagues, and the people of St. Martin. I'll first start with the questions posed by, who posed this question? MP Sarah Scott Williams regarding the GB clarification. To clarify again, we have never stated that there's no difference between the concession and the GB-related water and government expenses. With regard to GB, the government does offset the concession to be received from GB with the actual costs related to water and electricity. The offset happens based on the actuals at the end of the year. In the event that the concession is higher than the actuals, then the difference will have to be paid out by GB to the government. And in the event the concession is lower, the difference will have to be paid out to GB by the government. Question by MP Gums. MP Gums wanted an update on the Enya situation. By my letter of October 10th, 2023, Parliament was informed that the government of Curaçao did no longer choose for the going concern scenario to solve the Enya matter. In the meanwhile, Curaçao and St. Martin and the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin are working on an alternative solution for Enya. These discussions are on a technical level and in the final phase. Once an agreement is reached on the executive level, all parties of interest will be informed, including the policyholders that are residing on the island of St. Martin. Mr. Chairman, that'll be all the questions and answers posed to the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you, Minister of Finance, Minister Irian. And we will break for 2 minutes, 3 minutes until 3:44 for the Minister of VSR to take the floor. Minute adjourned for 3 minutes. Welcome back. We have taken a little longer, but the meeting is back in session, and we immediately turn the floor over to Minister Omar Otley. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good day to the members of Parliament, the viewing and listening public, my honorable colleagues, Minister of Justice, Minister of Finance, and their support staff. I move to the questions of MP Rayon Peterson. MP, you're a very good fortune teller. The questions and answers were emailed to you today. Also, I will go ahead and divulge and dive into the answers through you, Mr. Chair. Why was the RFP done for government to receive assistance in decriminalization and legislation of cannabis? Within the ministries and Department of Legal Affairs and Legislation, there is a shortage of legislative writers. This is not a secret to anyone within government. In addition, the expertise in the field of cannabis legislation was not available in-house. Thus, the reason for the RFP to gather proposals from local and international organizations with the expertise to get St. Martin on the map with the cannabis industry before we are too far behind. What research was done amongst the ministries to determine that there was a lack of expertise? The discussion regarding the legalization of cannabis took place numerous times in the Council of Ministers, and this is also a part of our governing accord. Based on the planning of each ministry, other priorities and country packages deadlines would have to be placed on the back burner, or the cannabis legislation would have to be placed on the back burner, and we wanted to proceed as soon as possible. Based on which law did the whole procedure of the RFP took place? On the Accountability Ordinance. Why was the composition of the committee and the selection process through 2 companies was selected, not a public and transparent process? That is not true. The process was indeed very transparent. An open tender was done where it was also sent locally and internationally. The committee was based on the Council of Ministers' decision to include persons from Ministry of Versailles, TEAT, and Finance, as the RFP focused on social, economical, and financial impact. Although the opium ordinance falls directly under the Ministry of Versailles, we found it prudent to do an interministerial approach. The company selected will indeed work with Justice, who is responsible for the enforcement aspect. The entire process is not yet finalized. I would like to make it clear, MP, you speak of 2 companies being selected. 2 companies were not selected. We had over 20 odd companies, through you, Mr. Chairman, applied. The top 5 were selected. They met with the committee members. Everyone was interviewed, and the top 2 companies that we speak of, through you, Mr. Chairman, was presented to the Council of Ministers for decision making. So it's not 2 companies selected. What expertise in writing Dutch legislation do the 2 companies have? As stated, the top 2, as a matter of fact, the top 5 all partnered with local firms who are well-versed in Dutch law and able to handle the assignment with plus 30 years in the cannabis industry, including legislative writing of cannabis laws internationally. Aside from assisting each relevant ministry with the legislation changes needed to make the legislation a reality, the article also mentioned the Department of Legal Affairs will draft an agreement with the 2 companies, again, not 2 companies, with one that is selected, who then will pay for all stakeholders' studies. Please note, there is one agreement as stated being drafted and proposed. And yes, the correct procedure is to have legal affairs draft the contract or vet the contract for the government of St. Martin to ensure that we are in line with not only the calm decision, but the laws of the country. The article states that the company will pay for all research. What is their return on investment? Well, the details have not been finalized. However, once the negotiation is finalized, we will be happy to make this public. Has any form of first preference been given when it comes to the project related to cannabis? Some proposals included concession agreement in exchange for financing, the research and legislation, whereas some others provided an overview of costs to execute the research. Why was this details? Why were the details of this arrangement not transparent? The process was transparent. The request for proposal, each company submitted their proposal they deemed fit. That is the questions pertaining to, that came from MP Rayon Peterson. I now move to the questions of MP Helga Martin. It's a big computer. Otley Opportunity Scholarship. Who are these major investors? What ties do they have to the government? What is the scope of service agreement? I would like to say the Otley Opportunity Scholarship came about where, through you, Mr. Chairman, we did the SOS, Scope of Service Agreement, the policy that we created within VSA, whereby any major investors or major contractors that require a significant amount of work permits have to maximize their capacity of local resources. This is also tied to the labor permit legislation. You have to maximize your capacity. Also, whereby they sign an agreement to do job fairs. Hereby, we had the Finzo job fair, the Ballasnatum job fair, the Hills job fair, the Simpson Bay Resort job fairs. So, and also in the SOS, companies should invest in our education market, especially for trade. For too long, we have heard that we do not have enough skilled persons. So therefore, in the agreement, a financial injection will be made from these companies to NEPA, which is our only source of trade at the moment, to enhance and kill the excuse of us not having enough skilled persons within St. Martin. You ask, how much persons will receive a scholarship? Well, the scholarship is determined by the amount of funds raised. So far, some of these companies that have signed the SOS policy, Ballasnatum, Finzo, Indigo Bay Hotel, and the Hills, and some others. These are examples of companies that have signed on and invested. So what we have projected at this moment with the SOS policy directed to NEPA is over $120,000 that will be paid. This is a policy that will be continued to be used for any major investment, be it hoteliers, contractors, that will require a significant amount of work permits. Another question was asked, can any investor join? The investment is not you come to VSA, you just want to invest. No, the investment is companies that actually go through the correct legal channels within the government, obtain a building permit, obtain every legislative necessity, and then you will be a part of the SOS. What is the update with the BIC legislation? What is the hold-up? Well, the hold-up with the BIC legislation is that it is being worked on. It is taken as a priority. However, there are numerous unforeseens that is being regulated at this moment. As well as in the meantime with the BIC, we also partner with the CIBG to then alleviate the problems with the BIC legislation. So that is it. The BIC legislation is being worked on. It has not been sent to the SED yet. It was sent a couple of times prior to my tenure, but received negative results. So therefore, we are redoing the BIC legislation. I move to the question of MP Westcott Williams. She asked, the article on the scholarship SOS, government reach an agreement, who are the investors? I also listed the investors at this moment. Ballasnatum invested, the Hills Project invested, Finzo invested, Indigo Bay Project invested. Can others participate? Yes, others can participate once they go through the legal trajectories, whether you're building a major hotel, a major mall, whatever it may be. The idea is to invest in our local resources because we are giving out hundreds of work permits because of lack of skilled resources. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister Otley. And we immediately move over to the Minister of Justice, Minister Anna Richardson.
Mr. Chairman, 1 minute, please, if you allow me.
If you allow you to do what?
I missed 2 questions from MP.
You're missing questions,
From MP, I would like to answer.
so you're not 4 times that well.
Nah.
Okay.
Yes. MP Heligan Martin asked about the Royal Caribbean Job Fair, where up to 1,000 job opportunities were offered, how many persons were hired. I do not have the latest update, but based on the internal email that was sent at the time, when I stated that I believe more could have come out, 127 persons received jobs, and over 100, included those persons that received jobs. If we add persons who were invited for second interviews, it will be upwards of 160. We also asked about, through you, Mr. Chair, the good MP also asked about the National Job Fair that just took place, whereby total for the 2 days, upwards of 500 to 600 persons showed up. 71 persons were hired on the spot, whereby another 40 plus was invited to a second interview. The amount of persons at this moment that received jobs from that, we are not able to have that information. I can only tell you what happened at the job fair, but interviews and hiring processes are still going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley. And do we need to break for a minute? Okay. Some chairs are being switched around. We immediately move on to Minister Anna Richardson, Minister of Justice. You have the floor.
Mr. Chairman. Starting with MP Gums, she has asked for a breakdown of the 200 LBAs where they are spread. I'm going to ask that I allow my staff to continue with preparing that breakdown while I move on to some other questions, and I will come back to give the breakdown. Her question number 2, though, for completeness sake, can you clarify the placement and function book is now complete for every agency in the justice chain? The function book has included 8 of the 9 current divisions of the ministry. The pendant function book to be incorporated in this function book is that of the Court of Guardianship and that of the new agency, Executive Protection Services. Let me explain. The Court of Guardianship book is actually complete. However, it has not been incorporated immediately into the now function book that is going to be activated because we are in the process of bringing the LEOL to Parliament for that to be approved. Only when the LEOL is updated to recognize the Court of Guardianship and that of the Executive Protection Unit can the function book be then activated into the now function book. Right. And I also want to reiterate that the function book is something that can be updated as we go, which we will actively do. I go on to questions from MP Grisha. I would like a breakdown with a time frame on when will the payout from the LBAs occur and what percentage of the payouts will be expected. In the 2023 budget account for the effect of phase 1 of the placement process, which is the placement of the active personnel from January 1, 2023, and relates to the cost of the 2023 up to and including the 31st of December 2023. The full payout of this period is to be released as one correction, or 100%. The retroactive period between 10/10/10 and December of this year, December of 2022, the 31st of, it is to be handled in another phase and realized in a separate LBA. So in other words, we have to recognize that staff are going to be receiving 2 LBAs. One that is retroactive from 10/10/10 until December 31st of 2022, as well as one that commences at the beginning of this year until the end of this year. To outline the process and the timeline is contingent on the processing of the batches of the LBAs, which I've indicated several times here. We are sending these LBAs to the governor, They have to be physically signed. They are not going to go through any type of machinery that would put any type of automatic signatures on. And then it comes back to my person as minister. I will then be signing these. So, of course, we have used the terminology expeditious because it is of high priority, and we're working within the time frame as to when we would receive them back from His Excellency. We cannot tell the governor how to move, how to sign, when. We cannot even ask him a date. So it is kind of unrealistic for us to be able to state here and say to you any sort of date. We're sending it to the governor. We hope to get it back expeditiously for us to be able to process as well. MP Westcott, is the retroactive per the 1st of July 2020 to be included in the payout to the justice workers? I believe this was in connection with like overtime, thought process and overtime. Yes, it is included in the scope of calculations. To bring additional clarity in this regard, it must be noted that once the LB Expositie St. Martin, which includes the changes to the current overtime regulation, is in use, this should be enforceable as per the date it is ratified and enacted. And secondly, the retroactive period shall be addressed in the relevant phases, namely phase 1 to be released in phase 1 and a correction for the 1st of July 2020 to the 31st of December 2022 in phase 2 and 3 respectively. Question 2, can the minister give an update on the insurance for justice? So the insurance for justice went to the Council of Ministers to be approved for payment to continue. However, inclusive in that package was administrative staff. That was posing a problem because the entire structure of justice is mainly administrative staff, and so the fact that administrative staff of justice was included in the initial liability insurance posed an issue. The liability insurance is intended for the staff that are on the front line with high risk service lines, and was not supposed to incorporate administrative staff. So the Council of Ministers held that advice and indicated we must remove administrative staff. That required us to go to the CCSU to be able to bring forth the position of the COM. With that, the Council of Ministers, the CCSU approved for the administrative staff to be removed. We had to reapproach NAGICO, which is the insurance provider, for us to obtain a new quotation. Discussions are also ongoing about the fact that the retroactive grant will be given. We are finalizing the advice to take it back to the Council of Ministers so it could be approved for these funds to be released, so that the insurance for the staff will be continuous. This is a liability insurance for the staff to be continuous and frontline staffers. Just to add a point to that, there are administrative staff that work within the Ministry of Justice that still feel like they should be entitled to some coverage there too, just because of the environment that they work in. They'd like us to consider that. And so discussions are also ongoing with that regard. Can the minister clarify the enforcement date of the overtime for police, and the statement regarding the 150 and the 200 overtime regulation remains in effect? The slide is on the screen for the purpose of reference. The LMR overtime regulation applies to administrative functions for the agencies such as KPSM, Landsverordening, or National Detectives, immigration, as well as the staff of Harvey Bay Customs, MOT, Judicial Affairs, and Staff Bureau up to Scale 9. The new regulation for police shall have retroactive enforcement from the 1st of July 2020, will apply to the frontline staff. So that is a distinction that you have to be able to recognize, that justice have administrative staff as well as frontline staff. So if an administrative staff, if you're speaking about administrative staff, they are regulated by the LMR and how that goes. And the frontline staff are regulated by the Expositie. So that is the differentiation that you will see on the screen to be able to give you the distinction. Question 4, listing of all mutual agreements to which we make the payments and contributes that St. Martin pay a part of. We have 9 of them listed here. Mutual arrangement for the detention capacity, mutual arrangement with ICT Law Enforcement Management Foundation, SBU, and as you mentioned, we made a reference to Perry Healings. This is the one with Perry Healings. Mutual arrangements for the immigration chain. Number 4, Kingdom Act and public prosecutions. Number 5, National Police Act. 6, Common Court Kingdom Act. Number 7, Law Enforcement Council Kingdom Act. Number 8, Coast Guard Kingdom Act. And number 9, General Measures of the National Administration Collaboration Agreement for Guaranteeing Action Plan, or simplified as the Progress Committee. Question 5, if there is possibility for payroll to run LBAs outside of December payroll, and that also goes into, will we request a special role once it is ready for actionable payment? Yes, that is what we are seeking to do, to see if we can seek a special role or a special payroll to be able to execute these signed LBAs that would have gone to the governor, come to the minister, file is made, sent to finance. The request of justice is to seek a special payroll. Does the LBAs include a 2023 period and retro in one LBA, or do they get 2 LBAs? As I indicated above, it will be 2 LBAs. Where the inactive personnel will receive, as I mentioned, the 2 LBAs, the separation between 10-10-10 to the 31st of December 2022, and then from January of this year to December 2023. So I'd like to now, do we have the breakdown yet for MP Gums? Not yet? All right, so through you, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to see if MP De Weaver, I don't want to misunderstand if the statements that were made by the MP are directed to my person or not. If I understood correctly, there was a reference, oh, there were 2 ministers. Okay, because there was mention about since 2019, you understood. And at the end of the day, I just really want to bring a clarification, because in the event that outside of here, the staff is under the impression that since 2019, the minister has been saying certain things and, doing it right. I have an image that I'd like to put on the screen that I think is very important. Sorry? Are we sure? Because I don't want the staff out here to feel like as though I have been saying, especially where this thing is concerned about the way payments was done. My focus has never been about payments. My focus has always been, no. For me, listen, MP, Mr. Chairman, very, very important for me is for the staff of justice to understand the kind of work that has been put in for them. And I am really, really careful about what is said on the floor of Parliament, not giving the justice workers any other impression of the minister who represents them than what I have put forward here. So when I make the statement, especially as MP De Weaver said, about doing it right, I'm speaking about the legislative process. It has nothing to do with the disbursement of any type of funds, because in 2019, there was a ministerial beschikking, and I want to put the image on the screen, that was signed specifically for at KPSM, right? And the reason that this is so important, and when I say I am doing it right, is because the legislative process is what we just followed. That package that's by the governor, that is what the way it had to be done. And I firmly and profoundly feel that our justice workers, even in the front of the building, when we had the whole, the charging and stuff, I kept being told, just sign it. Just sign it. And I'm saying the process is not a just sign it kind of process. But actions like that is what made our justice workers feel that my steps and my decision that I'm going to follow the proper legislative process was taking too long, because a ministerial regulation was signed when that was not the correct way. What we've done now is the correct way. And we are at the finish line, and we need this budget to pass so that that legislative package with the LBAHAM and the LBAs could be signed, so that the one-offs that our justice workers will get, because the money is good, they need it. but it ends or it finishes at a certain point in time. When they get their LBAs in their hand now, that's their gold. That is their gold. And that is what I made sure from the beginning to the end. So I just wanted to ask you if it was me you were directing that to. Okay, through you, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Thank you. Okay. 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 So, oh, okay. I just wanted the clarity. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm sorry. I just needed to get that clarity. So, you ready? Oh.
Let me please draw the attention to both MPs and Minister alike. We are not in a central committee meeting, and we are not in a committee meeting. We are in a public meeting, and there are rules that govern the public meeting. If an MP wants the floor, whether it's to commend the minister, congratulate the minister, question the minister, the floor needs to be requested. So I know we are all
Sorry.
getting ready for the trail, but this is not a place to engage in that. Minister, you may continue. Are you finished?
So, my staff is... Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have my staff feeling any type of but MP is clear now that it was not directed to my person. I'm sorry about that. We have one more part, which is MP Gums' breakdown, but my staff is still busy with that. So I don't know if she will accept that breakdown in another format, or you're going to give another opportunity to bring that information.
MP Gums? Who requested the breakdown?
MP Gums, the
MP
breakdown.
Gums. MP Gums? Yeah.
I'm looking at the SG, because it is a public meeting, and the answers need to be given publicly, as I understood, based on the rules, so I'm not sure how to move forward from here, actually. Thank you.
Bring it later?
As soon as the breakdown becomes available in the next half an hour,
Okay.
you can return.
Okay.
And in the meanwhile, Minister of Finance will answer questions posed to the Minister of Vromi. And the Minister of Vromi could not be here today because of a minor surgery, and the Minister of Finance would therefore fill in for him. Minister, you have the floor as soon as your light is on red.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll first answer the question from MP Sarah Scott Williams. What is the schedule for the paving of the roads? The schedule for the side roads program has not been established as yet. The bids were recently received and are going through its approval process. Once contracts have been awarded, the contractor will provide a feasible schedule considering all the relevant factors. And it is expected that the side roads begin in January. The questions posed by MP Rion Peterson. I'll first like to clarify that I don't believe you were here yesterday, but I never said that we were not aware of the deed of arrest, just to make that clear, the case. And the first question was regarding the parcel over the bank. No instructions were given to the cadastre to draw up the Maidbriven within the last 2 months, as the long lease policy is expected to be finalized soon. The department has been exercising its due diligence to fact-check information in line with the draft long lease policy. Regarding the deed of arrest, as I mentioned before, yesterday was mentioned that recently a meeting was held with all the notaries for us to find the best way forward while taking the deed of arrest case into consideration. The situation of the DDM has the attention of the Ministry of Vromi, as this affects all and many stakeholders. Given the complexity of the situation, we are actively considering all relevant factors. We understand the significance of this matter and assure that all concerned that a thoughtful and comprehensive approach is being taken to address all aspects of the issue. Once finalized, a joint communication will be sent out to inform the public on the way forward. Therefore, the ministry is well aware of the situation and trusts that this will be handled well. The next answer, a request has been received by the ministry and no decision has been made to issue the mentioned parcel of water. Next, does a water parcel fall in the channel to let boats go through the lagoon? From a quick review, the parcel is a small part of the water channel. And that's all the questions, Mr. Chairman, from me, and answers.
Thank you, Minister of Vromi. We will take a break as we still have questions pertaining to the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports, and he is not here. And we are awaiting questions from the Minister of Tiat, who we understood was at the doctor this morning and won't be able to make it, but he is trying to provide the answers. So the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs will answer for him. Minister of Tiat is preparing the questions to send for the Minister of, but we will take a break, and as soon as we resolve some of these issues, we shall decide on the way forward. Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes. I see. Welcome back. At this time, we will adjourn again for another 10 minutes as we are not ready to resume. Meeting adjourned once more. Welcome back, and the break has taken a little longer, but we are back, and we will resume the meeting with the Minister of Justice, providing the information that was lacking, the overview which was requested. Minister of Justice, you have the floor.
Chairman, so I owe MP Gums a breakdown as to when it comes to the 200 LBs we've referred to has been prepared to be able to go on to His Excellency for signing once the justice package is signed are the following. There are 8 for persons within Douana or Customs. There are 27 within the prison, 6 for immigration at the admission section, and there are 25, those are on border. There's 122 for KPSM, 6 for Landsverordening or National Detectives. There's 2 for MOT and 4 for Staff Bureau, which comes to the 200 breakdown. And that is the only question I believe I had pending. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. And we are not sure if we are ready for the Minister of TIAT, represented by, well, actually the Minister of VSR should be answering the questions for the Minister of TIAT. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. And I'll move to the answers for the Minister of TIAT. MP Helga Martin, regarding the marketplace, please provide Parliament with a copy of the commitment letter. This can be found in Budget Presentation 2023, as it was done. The tour went out. When did it go out? What is the exact date it went out? The tour for the marketplace was placed on bid initially on October 6th until November 9th, 2023. The selection committee evaluated the bid and made their selections, and the advice was sent to COM December 5th, 2023 for approval. There were some needed adjustments in which that has been addressed now and scheduled to be handled in COM, hopefully tomorrow, December 14th. Once approved, the work will immediately start, and the aim is to complete at the end of the first quarter 2024. Marketplace has not started. It was stated by an MP that it would start December 1st. As stated above, there was some needed adjustment. The timeline was broken down for the MP as to why it has not started as yet, MP. Through you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the tourist office, when was the contract signed, and by which Minister of TIAT? Is the term, in this term was it signed? The contract was signed May 18th, 2023 by Minister Lambrix. The advice was signed by my person. Questions regarding the Royal Caribbean cruise. Minister to provide an outline of the last couple of years. Cruise ship calls 2021, 168, 2022, 145, 2023, 96 thus far. Passengers, 2021, 113,230. You're writing, sorry. So passengers, 113,230 passengers. 2022, 461,450 passengers. You want the cruise ship calls again? Okay. In 2000, just give me added information. In 2021, cruise calls was 168. In 2022, 145. In 2023, 96 thus far. Is there anything on the list for the upcoming season for Disney calls? How many times a week? Disney call, 2021, 0, 2022, 6, 2023, 3, 2024, 1. With regards to the water parks, what are the details with the new facility? Does it include a hotel? Who's funding it? Is it government? Is it harbor? Is it third party? The port responded, these areas is concession to Royal Caribbean Group. They are responsible for the financing and development and building of that area. The current plans of the water park does include a hotel. I missed something, MP? The new water park and hotel project that is in the area adjacent to the Chesterfield and the harbor is a project that has been discussed for many years. The investment group of local investors has been seeking the opportunity to develop these properties since early 2009. At one point, the group had secured some form of agreement with APS for investment, but was suddenly derailed shortly after the fall of government. It is our understanding that since then, private investors has been made to secure accordance with the development agreement for the land. The Council of Ministers of St. Martin approved the vision plan known as the Quarter Development, which would entail the construction of the largest water park in the northern eastern Caribbean and a boutique hotel adjacent to the property of Dr. A.C. Watty Cruz Cargo Facility. Taxis, bus license, coincidentally at 12:16 p.m., the minister posted on the government page that there was now a cap. The moratorium on public transportation licenses was updated and published on September 27, 2023. The adjustment included a change from an outright halt on licenses of bus, taxi, T, and G license, and instead allow for a cap per license type, based on the number of licenses that have been issued up to that point. Once the cap had not been reached, the license can be issued. The benefit of changing the moratorium to a cap is allows implementation of a waiting system for licenses once there's availability. Although published September 27, 2013, Ministry is still receiving a high influx of requests. On December 8, 2023, the Ministry sent out an instruction for a follow-up publication, which was published on December 12, 2023, 12:16 p.m., as mentioned by MP. A previous press release by the minister was also published explaining the cap and reserves of future growth. I move to the question of MP Sarah Westcott Williams for the Minister of TIAT. The Minister of TIAT, through the Minister of Finance, has indicated that the advice for the bid of the marketplace was in circulation and could not be shared yet. Can it now be shared? Not at this moment, as stated. It is scheduled to be on COM tomorrow. Once the decision is taken, the information can and will be shared to the members of Parliament. Can the Minister, via the Ministry, provide Parliament with the most recent cruise numbers in terms of ships and revenue? Cruise calls, cruise ship calls, 2021, 391, 2022, 469, 2023, 480, 2024, 509. Passengers, you didn't ask for it, and if you want passenger information, I can give that. Okay. Passengers, for 2021, 243,450. 2022, 862,828. 2023, 1.1 million. 474. 2024 projected 1.3 million passengers. Would also like to know the agreement with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line for the marketplace. As stated, this was outlined above. Whereby Royal Caribbean has agreed to assist with funding of the marketplace through the harbor. The latest notice by the Minister of TIAT regarding the cap suddenly appeared, and that no more requests will be considered. As stated, the cap was largely based on the number of license plates issued up to that point that the policy was published, and can also be found on the government's website. The cap as published are as follows: buses, 300, taxis, 550, tours, T-plate, 240, unregulated G-plates, 90. Regarding GEBE with the BTP in 2017, what were the findings of the minister on the BTP report that was recently resent to the cabinet? The minister is of the opinion that a regulatory agency is needed. That is the question posed to the Minister of TIAT.
Thank you, Minister Utley. Do we have the education answers? We're on a roll. Minister of Justice answering for Minister of Education. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon once again to all tuned in and to the members of Parliament. On behalf of the Minister of ECYS, MP Heilige Martins, question: when will Minister ECYS present the State of Education report for the 2022 Parliament as required by law? Answer: currently the Ministry is busy reviewing the draft report, and once approved, Minister will present it to Parliament. Question 2. The Minister authorized the signing of an agreement with other countries within the Kingdom to introduce a Caribbean pre-academic year for St. Martin High School graduates who want to further their studies in the Netherlands. Does this mean that the high school diploma awarded on St. Martin, such as the IB, CAPE, VWO, HAVO, have lost their value because they no longer guarantee the direct access to tertiary education in the Netherlands? The answer: the aim of the academic foundation year is to be a temporary facility that will become obsolete as a result of measures that shall be taken in secondary education to optimize the success rate in the Dutch Caribbean islands, the Netherlands, and the region. The SEA or C projects, the program once implemented would last for 5 years. In addition, high school diplomas awarded on the island have not lost their value for students to be admissible to tertiary level education in the Netherlands. Question 3. How much funding and expertise and/or resources has the Dutch government made available to facilitate the Caribbean pre-academic year, and does the University of St. Martin offer any NVAO, NAVO, accredited programs? Answer: the Dutch Caribbean has made an amount of 27.22 euros available to facilitate the Caribbean Academic Foundation Year in St. Martin. The Dutch government provides support through a project manager together with the 3 representatives from other countries who support the development of the sea within the universities in the Dutch Caribbean. This program will be executed by the University of St. Martin. The University of St. Martin does not offer any NAVO accredited programs. Question 4. Did USM sign a matriculation Yes. And articulation agreements with the educational institution in the Netherlands? According to the minister's press release, the Caribbean pre-academic year is not mandatory. Can the minister please explain what would prohibit educational institutions in the Netherlands from adding the Caribbean pre-academic year as a prerequisite for admissions? Yes, The USM has MOUs with institutions of higher education and research with the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the European Union. The Ministry of ECYS is a member of the four-country consultation body that advises the ministers of education. This body works with various universities in the Netherlands and the Dutch Caribbean islands. Based on the signed agreements within the four Caribbean Council ministries, the universities in the Netherlands will not be able to make the pre-academic year mandatory as a prerequisite for admissions. Number 5. And lastly, can the minister explain why this agreement should be seen as discriminatory, should not be seen as discriminatory or voluntarily giving up our rights to equal access to tertiary education in the Netherlands? Answer. The Caribbean pre-academic year is not mandatory as such. There is no need to believe that this agreement is discriminatory or voluntarily giving up our rights to equal access to tertiary education in the Netherlands. And that concludes my answers on behalf of Minister ECYS. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister of Finance on behalf of Minister of Education, Minister of Justice. We now go over the clarification, right? We have come to the end of the deliberations and questions and answers in the second round. And I now open the floor for anyone who has any clarifications request. MP Sarah Westcott Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I thank the ministers also on behalf of the other ministers for the answers provided, and I would like the following to be clarified based on the answers provided. With respect to the SOS policy of the Ministry of VSA, is there a policy as such, or does it depend on the request of businesses as they seek to receive work permits for employees? And is NEPA as an organization mentioned, or can it also be another choice that these businesses would contribute to? And how exactly does the contribution to, for example, NEPA take place? Is it designated for scholarships, or is it paid to the organization, in this case the school, NEPA, so that they can decide whether it goes to scholarships for persons deserving of such, or to expand the school and organization? So is there a policy where these type of things are outlined? And if there is not, then my questions pertaining to how does this contribution take place? Does it go through our ministry? Does it go directly to NEPA? And is it designated one way or another towards the school, or specifically towards scholarships? Mr. Chairman, I received my queries regarding the extra payroll and referring to the payment to justice workers. And when asked about whether it is feasible to expect that these persons can expect the payment of their first phase in December, knowing that the payroll time is practically closed off, will be closed off, and the answer was then it could happen by extra payroll. And I've had that confirmed during the break that yes, that could happen. And any time that a payment is due, also for other phases, and the payroll is not, it can't make the payroll, that then a extra payroll would be done to pay out the justice workers. So I'm just confirming that I received that answer from the Minister of Finance. Mr. Chairman, with respect to the overtime matter, I would like the Minister of Justice to explain, just in general terms, if for KPSM, the change from the overtime schedule now to the new one, is that an advantageous move, or could it possibly mean that because this matter is retroactive, that they would have a loss compared? So what they were getting, the 300 guilders, the 1,000, et cetera, KPMS, KPSM, sorry, and they and then that is going over now to a different schedule of overtime. So is that a benefit that for especially the police organization, or could it mean that they have been receiving too much if this matter is going to be done retroactively, is my question. And a similar, no, not a similar question, but is this maybe offset by the increase in the dark hour allowance? And am I to understand, again, from the presentation of the minister where this matter is concerned, that the way it is currently, and now I'm referring to the dark hour allowance, that if someone is making, let's say, 40 cents per hour, generally speaking, that then if that person is to receive a dark hour allowance, that then he or she would be getting 44 cents? Is that the way it is right now? Because the minister in her presentation, Mr. Chairman, indicated that right now, dark hour allowance is 4 cents. I assume it's 4 cents an hour. It can be 4 cents a day or 4 cents for 4 hours. So I'm asking if someone's pay right now is, let's say, 4 guilders an hour, and that person worked dark hours, would that then mean that the pay that they get for dark hours is 4 guilders and 4 cents? So if the minister can explain how exactly that works, please. And then I thank the minister for providing an answer on the matter of the insurance. And my question is, given what the minister mentioned, Mr. Chairman, and the changes that needed to be made, is the insurance, are the person, the frontliners who are entitled to this liability insurance, are they insured? So the changes that needed to go back and the discussion with the insurance company, but have those persons remained, and do they continue to remain insured? Are my clarification questions, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. The next member making use, MP Grisha Heidegger Martin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'll get right into the clarifications. I have one for the, well, two actually for the Minister of TIAT. I didn't grasp the first answer. When will it be presented? It didn't, maybe if you could repeat that for me, please, when the State of Education report will be presented. I didn't get that answer. And the last one for the Minister of TIAT, it wasn't clear. It was stated that the funding for the resources is 27.22 euros, 27.22 euro. This is for the Minister of Education, but the Minister of Justice, I'm sure, is the one that's answering it. But this is for the Minister of Education, and through you, Mr. Chairman, the Minister of Justice stated on his behalf that it is 27.22 euros. Just 27.22 euros? I just want to know if it's 1,000 or I don't understand. 27.22 euros is all the minister stated. Then I have, again, it's going to be me and the Minister of TIAT today, Mr. Chairman. It was very vague. I asked for the commitment letter from the Royal Cruise. I want a copy of it. The Minister of VSAD answered on behalf of the Minister of TIAT that it is with the budget 2023. If it's with the budget 2023, I don't know where I can find it. I don't know where it is. I would like for the Minister of TIAT to please present me with the commitment letter from Royal Cruise regarding the marketplace. And I would also like, and I also asked, the amount committed within the commitment letter. I would like a copy of that. And please don't send it to me confidential. I'm asking in advance. I have some clarifications also for the Minister of TIAT. I don't know if MP Westcott touched on it because I was busy reading, but I don't understand the cap. So there's a cap on the cap. So I know there's a cap of 540 and you stopped at 400. So your cap is at where you stop? That's your cap? That's the cap? The decision of the Minister of TIAT is the cap of the 400 and something that he gave out in general. That's his particular cap. So he's not, because earlier I think he said in the question hour, the Minister of TIAT said through you, Mr. Chairman, that they can go up to 550. So are we sticking to that 550 cap, or are we setting our own cap below the 550 cap, the overall cap? That's my question. Then, Minister of Viasa stated that these major investors have to meet a maximum capacity. I don't understand what that means. Through you, Mr. Chairman, if the Minister of Viasa could clarify what he means by maximum capacity. The minister also mentioned that it's $122,000 that they have received thus far. I would like to know per company how much was allotted. Is there a fixed fund? How is this criteria? I don't understand the criteria. So I asked for X amount of work permits, and in return, I have to also invest in NEPA. What's the criteria? How much do I invest? Is it based on how many permits I get? I invest this amount. I'd like to know per company. Airport, the one for the airport, the one for the hospital, the one for the new project in Indigo Bay, and I think there was a fourth company. Per company, how much of that makes up the 120,000 that is there? And I also asked, how long is this agreement? Is it just, okay, so this is I guess it's on a per project basis, that depending on how many, is it only based on the criteria of only when there's a project, and you get X amount of permits, then you give to NEPA. I don't understand the criteria. The criteria was not clear. I don't understand it. I just need a full, better explanation. It's a great initiative, Mr. Chairman. Money is there for NEPA, but I just want to understand how it is put together more specifically and clearly for the people through you, Mr. Chairman. I also have a concern go back to the Minister of TIAT. Royal Cruise. 2021-168. Royal Cruise is the one that spends. Those are the big spenders, and I can feel. I hear it in the taxis. I feel it in Front Street. They're not. The big spenders are not coming to St. Martin. These are the big spenders. Don't we feel that this is a issue that it has dropped at 2023 to 96 calls from 2021 168 calls? What are we doing to increase these calls? This relationship, to amend this relationship with Royal Cruise? What are we doing to increase this? Are they is the Minister of TIAT or the Harbor or whoever, are they in talks with Royal Caribbean to at least consider increasing the cruise cost? Because that's not clear.
MP.
With that, I'd like to end it. I know, Mr. Chairman. I know you're going to let me slide, right?
If
The
you
last
know,
one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know, in court, we would say we strike that from the record, as it was a series of new questions. The amounts were given, and what was raised was not a clarification, but I do understand the sentiments. Should we adjourn to get the answers? Aye, aye, aye. MP Rolando Bryson, you have the floor. My apologies.
Gotta let me slide too, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon once again. Mr. Chairman, I too actually look at the numbers that are presented regarding I want to pull up because I made a note here. Okay, cruise calls. Yeah, so according to the numbers that were read by the minister, specifically regarding the number of calls, and when you take, and I'm talking about cruise facilities, is for the Minister of TIAT, the number of calls and juxtaposed, so compared to the number of passengers. When I look at the number of cruise calls in, for example, 2022, you have 469, and you have 862,000 passengers. An increase for 480, these are overall, to 1.2 million passengers, and then it's now projected in 2024 to 509 to 1.5 million passengers. So I see an overall increase in both the calls and the number of passengers. Now, of course, I would share the concern with regards to Royal Caribbean, because they are indeed a very important part in terms of the number of passengers, in terms of, the quality of passenger and so on. But what is interesting here and what I need clarity on from the minister, because according to the first numbers that were given just specifically to Royal Caribbean, Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman, it is indeed less calls in 2023, so 96 so far, projected to be 110. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But the total number of passengers is 500,000 by the end of the year 2023. So my question is it not, if I understand these numbers correctly, are we getting less cruise ship calls and getting a larger number of passengers, which I can only conclude, and would like the minister to clarify, we're getting larger Royal Caribbean ships coming to the country? So although the calls are less, so maybe the harbor might lose a little bit of money, but based on the numbers that were presented, we have more Royal Caribbean passengers coming, but we have less calls. So the only thing I can conclude is that there are now larger ships. Can the minister please clarify that to make it clear as to which of those answers are correct? The next thing I would like to ask, Mr. Chairman, there's always going to, I'm sure this is now the second clarification round for the Minister of Justice, and bear with us, or at least me, because this process is not something that is maybe very familiar to members of parliament and so on, because the minister has been through this. And when I hear her explain, I went back early in the video to try to follow the answer regarding the 200. And I still feel like I need some clarity. When 200 LBs, which a breakdown has been provided, I think the minister outlined when I rewatched the answer, and it was the LBs are provided after the LBHAM are assigned to the governor. The next step that the minister stated is that the minister signs the LB, co-signs the LB, correct, thank you. And then the third step that she mentioned after that was it would go to finance. The only thing that I'm not getting clarity on is where is the officer or the personnel member in that process? When do they get to see this LB? Is it before it goes to the governor, they can see what this is? Because earlier in the first round, the minister mentioned about an appeal process and also that it had to be irrevocable. So the clarity I need is where does that happen in those three-step process? Is it before it goes to the governor, or maybe after it goes to the governor but before you sign? Because that is an important distinction to make so that the officers, or at least I can understand, and them as well, when is the first opportunity I get to see what my final official document will look like in order to say, well, I need 30 days to check this out and whether I agree with it or not. I think with that, I might finally be able to understand this very critical part of the process. And in the event, if it is that the minister, after co-signing and it goes to finance, but there's a besoir or an objection to the decree, is it that until they formally inform the minister that they agree, that is when it would go to finance and then they can receive a retroactive payment? Or does the retroactive payment come nonetheless? I just want to understand that part of the appeal right that the officers or staff should have. And there was one more clarification on the Minister of TIAT. Minister, I would like to ask a question regarding the Minister of TIAT. Question was posed earlier, and I listened attentively to that question regarding the Disney cruise calls. They've only been almost non-existent indeed, or have been negligible. What would be the main factor to that? From what I understood, and maybe the minister can clarify if this is the case or not, is it indeed that Disney has signed a long-term major agreement in Tortola, as opposed to in St. Martin? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. And the last speaker on the list so far for a clarification round is MP Ludmila De Weaver.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I think I need to clarify last round because my question wasn't really answered, and actually if attention was paid to what I was saying, I was actually giving the Minister of Justice a compliment for the structured way and payout that she had, that she prepared in this. And what I went back and I said that in all of the discussion of the 2023 budget and in the discussion of all of the expectations to justice workers is that I remember specifically the minister saying that what was done with the payout to the justice workers in 2019 was illegal. Her word was not illegal, her word was incorrect. That is exactly what her word was. And that's all I was trying. It was incorrect, an MBA was used. So I was just repeating what I retained in my head from since this discussion started. And what I was saying in the same breath that persons were paid out in 2019. And now what it is my understanding that some of the officers, some of the justice workers potentially have to pay back something. That's what I said. Is that the case? And then I went on again to say that this country is privileged to have those justice workers still be at their job for 10 years when their salary hasn't changed for 10 years. And again, I complimented the minister on her work done. Perhaps the only thing that was heard was liar. That's not what I was saying. The minister and her structured approach was actually a realistic plan that I am getting. And I go on again to state that, which is the question of mine that wasn't answered, is we have a structured approach of a payout for justice workers. In the event another hurricane happens, another significant event happens in this country, what contingency plan is there in place? Are they going to put a reserve next? Because you have people waiting over 10 years for it. And then I also said, I know I have been a broken record since the Central Committee meeting last week and this week. I specifically was referring my questions to what different civil servants of various ministries are expecting with their COLA. My answer received from the Minister of Finance was, we agreed with the union to do a joint statement. We have less than half a month left for the year. So whether you want it to be a surprise and like a secret Santa, I just want to know what people can expect, because people outside, civil servants outside of justice are expecting something. But if it's a secret Santa surprise you want to do, then by all means, please do it. So let me reiterate again. I just want straightforward answers. It was a compliment to the Minister of Justice for a structured, non-illegal approach, because I want clarity on the MBA in 2019 and how it was done and what was wrong. That way people know what to expect. It's managing expectations. It's a simple thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. And we have another MP who signed on for clarification, MP Rayon Peterson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it short. Half of the question that I asked about the RFP were not answered. Half of it pertained to, I think, the first set of questions, but the other half that I asked pertained to the second set of questions. But I understood from the Secretariat that those questions were sent only recently to the Minister. So I'll just wait for him to answer those as well. But just to come back on something that the Minister said, that we lack the legal capacity in order to go down this road ourselves. But then I also heard that several of the applicants approached local legal companies in order to assist them in this. So then my question would be, why weren't those local legal companies approached directly by government for this to be a government venture and not something to be outsourced? And that is all I have for clarifications. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Rayon Peterson. We have come to the end of the clarification round. We will adjourn for 2 minutes and decide on the way forward. I know there are several MPs and ministers who have conformed to the reception for former Governor Holiday, the book launch, not reception, the book launch. And that was at 5 o'clock? Yes. So probably the best thing to do, let me adjourn for 2 minutes. Meeting adjourned. Welcome back, and we give the floor to the Minister of TIAT. VSA, sorry, I'm seeing TIAT in front. The Minister of VSA to provide the answers to the clarification questions that were posed. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move directly to the clarification. MP Sarah Westcott Williams, is this a policy as such? Yes, it is a policy. The next question, is NEPA organization mentioned, or can it be another organization? We chose NEPA because NEPA is the only legally recognized post-secondary technical vocational institute established and validated by the government. And based on the type of projects that we are doing, we think that the NEPA would give a better ROI to these investors of construction companies. However, it is not set in stone that it has to be NEPA based on the type of investment or company. There is a stipulation that says NEPA or any of the educational department facilities such as Sundial or vocational training school. So it depends on the type of investment. How does the contribution take place? Through you, Mr. Chair, the money is donated directly to NEPA, and that is currently for the scholarship only. So the money, the funds goes directly to NEPA and is used for the scholarships. I move to the clarification of MP Yusha Heliga Martin. Clarification on the scholarship. How is the amount established? The department decides on the amount based on the projection. I'll give an example, and the size of the project. I'll give an example later down when I give the breakdown. How long is this scholarship intended to run? We hope that it can run forever. It is a plan whereby investments should be given to our institutions to enhance our capacity. When I say maximize capacity, I mean maximize your efforts for local capacity. Through you, Mr. Chair. So whereby, an example, whereby as we see, for instance, Ballast Nadam, before coming for a specific amount of work permits, they did a job fair. And with this job fair, and they maximize their ability to receive as much local persons as possible, and same with the others. You asked
Minister,
about,
a minute, please. We have some issues in the technical room, and we would need to adjourn for a few minutes. some technical adjustments. Minister of VSA, please continue.
So therefore, through you, Mr. Chair, I was explaining what is meant by maximizing your efforts to hire locally. I see the MP shook her head, so I'm assuming that she understood. As it goes to Ballast Natum, the size of the project, they were projected to pay $50,000. They have agreed to pay $50,000, signed to pay $50,000. Let me put it like that. The Hills project, they signed to pay $20,000. The Indigo Bay project, they signed to pay $50,000, based on the size of the project and the amount of work permits that they would request. With the project, it also comes job fair within stages. So you have a job fair within the first basic construction stage, then there'll be another job fair within the finishing stage, and then there'll be another job fair with the business owners with the hiring stage. As it pertains to MP Peterson, with his clarification as to why we didn't outsource locally, why were local lawyers not asked instead of RFP? The RFP did just that. It allowed local companies to submit their proposals. The work needed for research and drafting was quite extensive. Local lawyers teamed up with international experts with the expertise in the cannabis industry, which is very important, which was very limited locally. And with the much needed expertise, we would be sure to handle it in the right direction. So that was all the clarifications given by the members of Parliament. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
I have the answers for Tia.
Thank you, Minister of VSA. And the Minister of Everything is going to answer for TIAT now.
Yes, sir. MP clarification, TIAT, MP Hilliger Martin. Your answer was very vague. TIAT's answer was very vague. I asked for the commitment letter. I need a copy of it. The letter from Royal Caribbean is something that they have entrusted in the Council of Ministers. If the MP is referring to the official letter sent from Royal Caribbean to the government of St. Martin, that cannot be shared until it is handled by COM, which is expected to be handled tomorrow. We would, out of respect for Royal Caribbean, such as an important strategic partner to the country and to the port, we would have to consult with them about the sharing of this document with Parliament. Once the above is done, then it could be sent to Parliament. So once it is handled completely in COM, it can be sent to Parliament. I don't understand the cap. Is it 550, 400, according to the MP? To you, Mr. Chairman, it was mentioned in the minister's press release that 10% of the cap will be kept as reserve for future growth while remaining with the parameters of the moratorium. I have a concern. RCG, 160 cars, they are the biggest spenders. Why don't we increase this? Talks are continuous in Royal Caribbean. The trend has been bigger and better ships. So while we look at less cars, but it brought a larger number of Royal Caribbean passengers and for a very long time, and also a much higher spending passenger than the smaller ship, as new ships may tend to come with a larger average of spending power. This can be seen in the larger ships about to be released, named Icon of the Sea, that will be calling to St. Martin February 2024. Although the call, MP Rolando Bryson, your queries, clarification, although the calls for RCG are less, we have more passengers coming. Yes, larger ships from Royal Caribbean are coming to St. Martin, resulting in more passengers than in many years of Royal as well. This could indicate the level of confidence they have in our destination, and we will continue to build these efforts. Questions are posed earlier regarding Disney Cruise Call. why have they been non-existent? Disney has a strategic agreement with Totola for almost 10 years now. So it is indeed challenging to get Disney here when they went into such agreement years ago. Long before the time of this government, we are actively discussing and exploring avenues for more cars to St. Martin from this, be it Disney and other cruise lines. That is all of the clarifications we had for the Ministry of TI.
Thank you, Minister Otley. And we now go to the Minister of Justice. First for clarifications for the Minister of Justice, and immediately followed with clarifications for education. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, starting with MP Westcott, KPSM oversight change, new to old schedule, advantage of police organization, or have they received too much in the past? The overtime regulation is one negotiated by the unions and has been supported and adapted based on their requested changes. The major change is that the hours incurred above 40 hours are no longer capped at 1,000 guilders. This is what was requested and negotiated by the employees to the Minister of Justice. This is exactly what was a part of the 2019 draft police law that was picked up after it had gone through the COR. Nothing was being done with it, and it was carried through to where we are today. Now, if there is any disadvantages to any of the officers, I cannot say that there is. I would want to believe that what we have done with the unions, and this is what they championed and fought for, is exactly to the benefit of all employees. Is this offset by the increase in the dark hours allowance, 4 cents per hour? So a correction, that was an error where it had 4 cents. It's actually 40 cents is what it used to be, or what it currently is, but in the draft to be signed by His Excellency now, it goes to 4 guilders. So from 40 cents to 4 guilders per hour. In terms of the insurance, that's exactly what we are working towards, and understanding that there is adjustment that needs to be made by the policy. We are seeking for the policy to be onward. I have gotten a positive response from the insurance company that is there will be a retroactive or a continuation in the insurance coverage, so that would give us the comfort that the officers are insured. Based on the discussions we're having with the entity, it was not indicated that that is not possible, so that is a part of our discussions, that it would be continuous. MP Bryson, with the outline progress regarding the LBAs, when exactly does the employees get to review the LBAs, which, or the appeal with the besoir given? So, keeping in mind that we are putting forward LBAs for individuals who have not placed any objection. So remember, the placement letter gave them a complete breakdown of where they are and what they're, not figures in terms of money, the value of the money, what they're entitled to, but what they're being offered. So their LBA is going to reflect that. If they haven't given any objection to that, then we are taking it that they accept it. So the process of the LBA is going to go fully through. Now, once they receive the LBA, and you're asking when will that be, of course, we're trying to be expeditious in this process. So after the governor, then the minister, then to finance, it'll come to them. But then by then, payment has been made. They will then have the opportunity to do an appeal if they wish to. But remember, we're acting based on non-objection. Those who have objected, the discussion happens before their LB goes anywhere. Yeah. MP De Weaver, is there a contingency plan if there's a disaster for justice workers to be paid? Just like any matter of obligation that we have going forward. We have obligations, and if anything happens in terms of a disaster, we have to ensure that those payments takes place. So we will do everything within our might and will to ensure that justice workers and that obligation is adhered to. Will the staff have to pay back? We do not seek for anyone to have to pay back, but of course, every individual conversation is going to be looked at, or every individual situation is going to be looked at and discussed. So I hope that I've covered the questions at MP De Weaver, but I do, through you, Mr. Chairman, have a point of clarification that I would like to carry. So MP De Weaver, I thank you for the compliment which I've indicated to, but when you and I were colleagues, when you were Minister of TEAT, I went through this same exact discussion with MP Emmanuel as well as MP Peterson, to the point where MP Emmanuel said the same thing. He made the statement along the lines as I, as minister, indicated that what Minister Durand did was incorrect with the MBA. I was able to come back to Parliament and I put what I said, that video, on the screen, and I clarified that is not what I said. And that video, all the videos, all the meetings we have are documented. It can be played again. This minister never indicated that Minister Durand did anything incorrect. What happened was both MP Emmanuel and MP Peterson asked what was the legal basis to pay out the justice workers. I stated, based on the research that I have gotten, it was a calm decision. Both MPs' reaction was, a calm decision is a legal basis. I left it at that. If we look at what I have been saying from the onset, and I put the image on the screen today, what we saw being signed for KPSM workers back then in 2019 was a ministerial decree for their legislative or their legal position. And I've been saying from the onset that was not the correct instrument. I said it here again today. The correct process is the process we've completed by preparing the LBHAM and the LBAs. So there are two MBAs that are being referred to here, and the one I have been speaking about from the onset has to do with the legal basis. So we can always bring back those videos to show what I have said, clarified, provided, everything. My focus has never been about the payment. It has been about their legal structure and status. So again, I'm saying through you to the MP, thank you for the compliment, but there is a mix in which MBAs are being referred to here, and I never insinuated anything against Minister Durand. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. The clarifications for education has been.
I'll do it for education. So I do believe that the single clarification was, what does a 27 refer to? Minister ECYS, is to 20, sorry, I'm sorry. The 27,000 euros is 1,000. 27 is 27,000 euros. And I'm sorry, I don't recall what the second clarification point was. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the minister through you can please repeat the first answer to the first question I posed. The state of education, when we would be able to receive it. I didn't quite get the answer. The first answer. Just to repeat.
So it was, the first question was, when will Minister ECYS present the state of education report for the 2022 Parliament as required by law? Answer, currently the ministry is busy reviewing the draft report, and once approved, Minister will present it to Parliament. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ministers, and thank you, members of Parliament, for your participation thus far. As we have discussed previously, we would adjourn at this moment and continue the meeting tomorrow at 3:30 in the afternoon. You have a point of order? Yes? MP
Yes,
Heilerer?
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order for tomorrow's meeting. I will not be able to attend. I'm saying it for the public that I've been here for all meetings on time. Meeting started late, but I've been here giving quorum. But just tomorrow, I think when the voting is going to be there, I would not be able to attend that meeting for personal reasons. I'm just stating it for the floor of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the statement. Meeting adjourned until tomorrow afternoon, 3:30.